Okay, so we're looking at our behavior tree again, and we see these tasks, the find player, the try shoot, and the get random location. And those are tasks that I created through Blueprint. So let's click on one of them, and we can look at how I wrote it. All of these start with this event receive execute. There's a separate thing called event execute AI that does a very similar thing according to its documentation. I don't exactly know how to use all the examples that I see online. Use this and not that, so that's how it's gonna go. Um, and then there are several nodes in here that say finish execute, and that just means the task is over, and that's how it returns out. Some of these you look at and you see there's a success on these finish executes. If it is checked, that means it will return true, and so the sequence can continue. If it returns false, that means there was a problem that we intentionally caught, and that would mean it would go to the other sequence of items, which would be this waiting and getting a random location and doing all that. So basically all this does is gets a player pawn, it, it checks for validity, it gets the actor location of the play. It gets the actor location of the third person character and of the player pawn. It finds the distance between them, and if there are less than 1,000 units between them, we are able to save the player location and save that into our blackboard, which is again that thing that saves all of the data we're going to use between the different tasks and return true. That's the ideal. That is, if we were in that 1,000 units, this is kind of the make or break for the rest of us being able to, for the AI being able to shoot at the enemy. Now let's look at how we set up this blackboard value as a vector. This node. So instead of in a standard one of these, if I were to make a variable float, demo float or something like that, and we could change that to this. We might be used to doing something like this, where we call set, and we can set that to whatever we want, 3.4 or whatever. We can't exactly do that for the blackboard. The blackboard requires us to use this set blackboard as value, as whatever. If you do this, when you do this, you can. I'll show this working for the demo float. Set blackboard value as float. And then what we get is called a blackboard key selector. A blackboard key selector is not actually like a variable. Like, this is not actually a vector3. It is a key into a vector3 that is in this blackboard. And it is specifically that relationship. Oh, now we're getting compiler. That relationship is actually not established in the task, but instead when we use the task here, this find player, it will show this list of different blackboard keys, and that's how we link up the player location blackboard key in here to this actual thing here. So these are different. This is in the blackboard, whereas this is a blackboard key in the task. And by using this dropdown, when we actually use the node in the behavior tree, we can actually link those two things together. And that's kind of how the connection between the data out inside of the task and gets carried to outside of the task. And then with the other things, I mean, find player, like what it does and how it works is pretty self-explanatory. Rotate to fit, that's actually built in. Wait's built in. Try shoot. There's a little bit here that's kind of tricky because we need to, this is a good example because you look at this and we do have the owner actor, but we actually need the AI controller, and because we need to get this as a controlled pawn and we need to cast this as the third person character. That is the main blueprint for the third person this enemy, because I've made a function in it called gunfire, and that's really what's doing all the work here. So you might think that for tasks like firing the gun, I would have to write all of the logic inside of this task. Actually, I find that it's better to write for something like firing the gun, which is going to involve spawning a projectile and aiming this thing and getting references to different meshes, which I have to do for this. It actually it makes more sense to kind of make that function inside of the blueprint and then just call it within the task. Meaning this task gets to actually be pretty short once we get access to the. I might actually be able to not do this. I'm gonna try. I might be able to just cast directly to third. I feel like I tried that and it didn't work, and I had to do this double casting thing. But and then there's if the casts fail, then we can fail the execution and move on. But yeah, all it needs to do is call gunfire and we're good. And then I have a debug string in here that's not important. And then the last task, I believe, is get random location, which is also pretty straightforward. We get the actor location, and then Unreal has this really nice, the actor class has this really nice built-in function called get random reachable point in radius, which just gives us from any location for an actor just get a random point that it can get to, like it can actually move to. And then, so we call that, and then again, we do this set blackboard value as vector. Again, destination key is a blackboard key, not a vector, not a real vector. And then if we look at its usage in the behavior tree, we set destination key, that's this specifically. This is destination key here. And then we set it to destination, which is the vector3 value in the blackboard. And that's pretty much how all of the AI works. Again, it's pretty simple, but it for just getting some basic AI off the ground, kind of runs around and shoots at the player. This is what I've got going, and it works fine for now.